641 News Radio 1029 KARN. First News, Kevin Miller, joined by Senator Tom Cotton. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Hey, Kevin, it's good to be back on with you, and Happy New Year to you and all your listeners.
Same to you. Senator, I want to get your insight on what's been happening involving Iran.
Last week, the United States delivered justice to Qasem Soleimani, a terrorist mastermind who's killed thousands of Americans, including hundreds of American troops in the Iraq War. We also delivered justice to their families. But just as important, Kevin, we made the world a safer place because Qasem Soleimani was truly Iran's irreplaceable man. He was their master strategist. He had a direct line of communication with their supreme leader. It was his proxies in places like Iraq and Syria and Lebanon and Yemen that have been killing Americans and our partners and destabilizing the region. So I commend President Trump for delivering a long overdue blow to Qasem Soleimani and the Islamic Republic of Iran as a direct result of their killing an American and wounding others on Friday, December 27th.
Senator Tom Cotton, what do we know about this strike? What was Soleimani planning? Do we have any idea?
Kevin, we do. I reviewed all the intelligence related to the matter yesterday, since I'm on the Intelligence Committee. Qasem Soleimani, it should be noted, was flying to Baghdad from Lebanon, where he had been consulting with Hezbollah, another terrorist organization with the blood of thousands of Americans on its hands. He traditionally has flown into Iraq to meet with his senior terrorist proxies there in preparation for the kinds of attacks that you saw on December 27th that killed the American and wounded other Americans up in northern Iraq. This was a direct result of that attack. As you know, President Trump ordered retaliatory strikes against that terrorist group in Iraq and Syria. A couple days later, then that same terrorist group, with its leader, tried to break into our embassy last Wednesday. And then with a targeted opportunity that Qasem Soleimani presented, the president did the right thing and took out the head of the snake. I should say, Kevin, too, that let me just go back a little bit in time to give your listeners some perspective. Back in my days, when I was in Iraq, Qasem Soleimani traveled with extraordinary operational security. Stanley McChrystal recently wrote that they had one shot at Qasem Soleimani when he was head of the Joint Special Operations Command. They didn't take it. He regrets not taking it. But the operative point is they had one shot. For the last 5 years, though, really since President Obama refused to enforce his own red line in Syria, Qasem Soleimani has not traveled with operational security. If anything, he's been like a traveling rock star that announces his trips around the region and posts selfies on social media.
Sure.
So as skilled as our intelligence operatives are in many matters, it did not take exquisite intelligence to know where Qasem Soleimani was, because part of his entire mystique, part of his recruiting pitch to his proxies around the region is that he is a terrorist mastermind for a sworn enemy of the United States. He travels in the open, yet America would never dare strike him. I would suggest that a lot of terrorists around the Middle East now are thinking twice about the boldness of their attacks against Americans.
Senator Tom Cotton at News Radio 1029 KARN. Senator, there was word that security had been watching, and you mentioned that too, had been watching Soleimani for years. The president mentioned that he should have been taken out years ago. Why wasn't he? And there's been some criticism about the strategy there, that it might destabilize the region. Has it done that?
So again, in the Bush era, he traveled with operational security. In the Bush era, striking Qasem Soleimani would have probably required a level of intelligence close to what it took to identify Osama bin Laden or Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, the heads of al-Qaeda and ISIS. So that's one reason why we didn't strike him in the Bush era. In the Obama era, it was the policy of President Obama to seek a rapprochement with Iran. That's why we got the nuclear deal. That's why they lifted sanctions against Qasem Soleimani. And that's when he kind of began this rock star tour around the Middle East, setting up more and more proxy forces to attack Americans and to attack our allies in the region. Over the last year, what we've seen is growing and more aggressive attacks against Americans throughout Iraq. I can tell you on the Intelligence Committee, we've been watching this reach the point of a slow boil for months. It is not surprising to me that we reached the point in late December where an American was killed and that we had to take action. Donald Trump was very clear about that from the very beginning. You know, he refrained from striking back at Iraq or Iran when they shot down our unmanned aircraft in June. He didn't retaliate when they blew up Saudi Arabian oil fields in September. But he said, if you kill an American, you will pay severe consequences. And they crossed that line in late December, and they now see what those consequences are. So I would suggest strongly to the Ayatollahs they should think twice before they try to out-escalate Donald Trump.
Senator Tom Cotton, Senator, you're engaged with a bill involving impeachment. What's up?
Well, Kevin, it seems like the prosecutors may be getting cold feet. It's been almost 3 weeks now since the House passed on a party line vote its impeachment articles. Actually, I should say it was a bipartisan vote against the articles, but they passed a Democrat-only set of impeachment articles, yet they still haven't sent it over to the House or to the Senate for a trial. Mm-hmm. To give you some context, when the House impeached Bill Clinton back in the late 1990s, they sent the articles of impeachment over that very same day. So I'm not sure what Nancy Pelosi thinks she's going to get out of this, or what Chuck Schumer thinks they're going to get, but it's time to get on with our business. So the resolution we've introduced is that if the House of Representatives, not just in this matter, but in any matter, refuses to prosecute its own case of impeachment in the Senate after 25 days, then it will be in order for any senator to introduce a motion to dismiss. I hope Pelosi just stops this charade and sends the articles of impeachment over to the Senate, though, so we can get on with doing the people's business.
Senator John Bolton, his testimony under subpoena, if he is called to the Senate, he said he'd do it. Does that change the scenario at all?
No, Kevin, and I think it's premature to even consider witnesses and documents at this point. The rules that were good enough for Bill Clinton are good enough for Donald Trump. In the late 1990s, again, to go back in time, there was unanimous agreement, all Democrats and all Republicans, to structure the trial in two phases. The first phase would be opening arguments by the House of Representatives and by the President, and then a period of time for senators to submit questions, and then a period of time for senators to deliberate. Only at that point, when they had all those materials in front of them, did they make the decision whether or not to call witnesses. If it was good enough for Bill Clinton, it's good enough for Donald Trump.
Senator Tom Cotton, always a pleasure. Good to have you on.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks so much. 647 News Radio 102.9 KARN.